My name is Dr. Ann Beck. I was the Executive Director at Literacy Volunteers of Coconino County from 1999 until 2011, spring of 2011. And I like this part of orientation, so that's why I said, oh, let me do it. One of the questions people ask is, how literate is the population in the United States? And I think the answers are a little bit frightening. You may have heard in the popular press after the 2000 census that 1 in 7 Americans can't read. I'm going to show you how that statistic was generated. There was a National Adult Literacy Survey conducted in 1993 based on the 1990 census. Another one was conducted in 2003. This one is called the National Adult NAAL, National Adult Assessment of Literacy, unfortunately it used different criteria than the original one. We're not sure what's coming out based on the 2010 census yet. It's early 2012 as I'm filming this, but information is starting to come out and we're hoping to know more about that soon. For the 2003 survey, approximately 20,000 people were chosen at random and asked a series of questions. The first set of questions were given in both English and Spanish, and if a person couldn't understand what was going to happen based on English or Spanish, then they were eliminated from the survey. So that means that we're now down to about 15,000 people that this is based on. That doesn't mean these people were disabled or something necessarily. It could be that they had a different home language and didn't acquire English as well. But it also did include lots of severely disabled people that just got picked from the random pool. So what they did was give 3 sets of tests on literacy. And this chart, this bar graph, gives you kind of an idea of how that works. So the prose portion of the test was based on questions that looked for things like main idea, the opinion of the author, and that kind of thing. Fairly typical literacy type questions. The document literacy portion of the test was more interactive literacy. So this would be filling out forms, answering questions, and doing things that involved writing in response to the actual test. And then they also included quantitative literacy. And quantitative literacy is literacy that requires some kind of math. So in its simplest form, a word problem, and then different kinds of tasks that are typical in everyday life were included in this section, like calculating your insurance premium or figuring out your benefits from work, that kind of thing. So 3 different tests of literacy, and here's how this random sample of 15,000 or so people scored. Based on the scores, 4 levels were identified: below basic, basic, intermediate, and proficient. It's kind of upsetting to see how this worked out. Of this group of 15,000 that represented the nation, only 14% scored as below basic in the prose literacy category. That means that 14% of the nation can't do the simplest kind of literacy, reading and understanding what they're reading. 29% scored in the basic area. People that are considered to have basic literacy skills can handle most things in daily life. But if something new comes at them, or if there's a change at work, they just don't have the resources to adjust and adapt to new ways of using language. The third group, the intermediate group, had 44% of the total. I guess that's good. But proficient, which you'd think lots of us would like to be considered proficient, only 13%. Kind of scary. We consider below basic and basic our population. That's who we work with. And if you take these two together and kind of average it all out, that would be your 1 in 7 Americans. So document literacy was even harder for some people. 12% of the population scored below basic in document literacy, 22% basic. So that's 34% right there in that category of at risk. 55% of the population was intermediate, and again, 13% were considered proficient. And finally, quantitative, 22% of the population was not quantitatively literate. 33% just had a basic grasp of quantitative literacy. Intermediate is 33%, and again, another 13% for the most proficient. There is a lot of information on this survey that's available online, and the site for that is in your packet. We also have a table in your packet that gives these same numbers if you prefer tables to bar graphs. But there's a couple more things I want to say, just a couple of things. The subjects were 16 years old and older, and lots of different ways of looking at this population have been pulled out. A couple of tidbits of college graduate students. That means people that have received a bachelor's and are working on a master's or a doctorate. Only 40% of them scored as proficient in the 3 literacy categories. That's kind of scary. Only 40% of our masters and doctors are fully literate. Let's see, what other kinds of things can I say? Certainly there is a correlation with age and lower literacy skills. Seniors across the board have lower literacy skills than younger people. That might be changing though, because we have consistently found with national testing that our 4th graders and 8th graders, considered 2 key populations, are not reading at grade level. So we expect that might change in the future, and it might even show up in the 2010 census. I'd like to also direct you in your packet to the page that has some examples of the questions for each of the areas. So for example, prose literacy, it gives some of the tasks that were used, such as searching a short, simple text to find out what a patient is allowed to drink before a medical test. For the intermediate level, a test might be consulting reference materials to determine which foods contain a particular vitamin. So you can see that these are daily tasks and things that most of us encounter in our lives and have to deal with either successfully or not. So the bad news is that we are not a very literate nation. The good news is there's lots of work for literacy volunteers. Thank you.